Welcome to Reimagine Childhood, brought to you by Early Childhood Christian Network, where we equip you with the tools you need so you can confidently care for and teach young children. We know you want to provide the very best early childhood experience for children and for their parents. But sometimes you feel frustrated and ill-equipped because the training that's required is not interesting or it's just not applicable to your daily needs in the classroom. In every episode, we reveal practical, applicable strategies to use in your classroom that will create a lasting impact and will help children build the foundations they need for a lifetime of success. It's time to reimagine our approach to childhood. I'm your host, Monica Healer. My guest today is Emilie Flaherty. She serves as Minister for Children and Families at Cliff Temple Baptist Church in Oakcliff, a small neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. Emilie is passionate about advocating for and building relationships with children. Prior to this role, she served for 8 years in public education, where she taught a combination of kindergarten and first grade and led multiple teams of teachers. Her background in early childhood development and elementary education prepared her for her current role of helping children and families grow and develop their own relationships with Jesus. She's an avid reader and loves bug hunting with her 2 little boys and conversations with friends over a cup of coffee. She is passionate about equipping young families as they grow in all aspects of life. I know you'll enjoy listening in to this conversation about how Emilie and her church are taking the church to the people, rather than waiting for the people to come to the church. Here we go. Emilie, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Emilie, I know you and I share this passion to really reach young families for the gospel and to support them in being parents, being married, raising children, and being part of a community. You have done some really fun and unique things in your church to connect with the families in your child development center. First off, tell us a little bit about the CDC at Cliff Temple full time. Give us some of that, and then we'll dive into how you've connected with parents really intentionally.
So I am the Minister for Children and Families at Cliff Temple. We are a Baptist church in a very small neighborhood in Dallas called Oakcliff. It's a really tight-knit community. And on our campus, we have a child development center that is full-time, 5 days a week, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And right now we average about 120 students and around 36 staff members that run the center, and puts us at about 80 to 90 families depending on siblings. It is a really special place. It's been around for 75 years, and it was actually started by a pastor at the church who really had a vision for offering equitable and affordable childcare for the community. And what we've noticed over time is that it has really become an Oakcliff staple. It's where the Oakcliff families send their kids to daycare, and almost every single family enrolled in our CDC lives within 5 miles of the church.
Oh,
So
wow.
we are really serving our local community, which offers us just a totally different opportunity than maybe some people would have if they were providing a center that had a broader reach. I have been on staff there for a year and a half. And really, what started with me was flipping my mindset of who are the children and families that I'm ministering to, not just the children and families that come on Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights, but also this whole entire school population that we have, ministering to those children and families. And that looks different than what I do on Sundays and Wednesdays. And also ministering to the families in our community. Living in such a small community, we do live in a big city, but Oakcliff is very, very neighborly, very tight-knit. You're not going to go somewhere without running into someone you know. And so how can I reach those families too? Was really what was on the forefront of my mind when I took this role. I have a background in early childhood development and education. And so I think God really equipped me with kind of a more tangible skill set in child development, understanding the needs of children. I'm a young mom myself. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and a baby on the way who all attend the center. I am fully immersed in this world, both work-wise and personally. That has been kind of God in this season to help me use those skills that I'm cultivating to serve my community. And so when I took this role, I saw this opportunity to reach our community in a way that maybe hasn't been met yet and meet some needs that are really there. I've been really excited about it, and we've seen some really great things happening.
I love that your kids are there because I think that
Mhm.
gives really an internal perspective of
Yeah.
maybe what the parents might be looking for as far as community or quality in childcare. But I love that you're so immersed in the center, even though your primary role is you're minister to children and families for the church.
Mhm.
And you've decided the church includes the families of the CDC, which, I
Yes.
mean, you know that that's my heart and my passion. I think the families of
Yeah.
the city should always be considered as part of the church family. So I love
Yes.
that you've done that. Let's start out talking about how you are connecting with the children in the
Mhm.
CDC.
Yeah. So when I took this role and really kind of tried to shift our mindset of, just like you said, the CDC is a part of our church. For a lot of them, this is their church. This is the version of church that they are attending. This is their church community. That would be serving the teachers, serving the families, and serving the children. And so, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is building relationship with those children. They need to know who I am, and they may not have the language of, oh, Miss Emily's my minister or my pastor, but that is the relationship I'm building with them. And whether they can name it or not, I felt firmly that God was calling me to be face to face with these kids, hopefully weekly, if not at least 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on in their month. And so I expanded upon what we were already trying to do as a church, which was offer them a chapel experience. I offer the kids a chapel experience once a month. That is when we gather infants through pre-K 4 and have a worship service, is really what I would call it. We start with music, we learn different songs, we hear a message, and then we repeat some of the songs we've been practicing and wrap up with prayer. Throughout the month, I'm equipping the teachers with tools that they need to help further that learning of what the message was that we were studying in chapel that month. And then I also launched something new with the children that I called a storytelling class. With my background in education and teaching, I felt like God was calling me to use that skill set and adapt it in a new way. That's how I came up with this class. Each week, I meet with them and we read a different children's book. We've read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. We've read, our most recent one was Goodbye Summer, Hello Autumn. Just
Yeah.
different books, all kinds of things, maybe based on theme or what they might be experiencing. And I help them make connections to God through the literature that we're reading. My hope and prayer with that is that these are books that these kids have on their bookshelves at home, and that I am reading with them, and then they are maybe going home and having a discipleship moment with their family and really expanding upon that. We always do some sort of hands-on activity, whether craft or game at the end. I always try to send them home with something that explains to the parents what they learned about. And I usually have a learning target. So, for example, Very Hungry Caterpillar, we learned God makes all things new. And then in our seasons book, we talked about how seasons change, but God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I try to get those learning targets home into the hands of parents so that they are seeing what their kid is learning. I've seen a lot of success in this way that I've been ministering directly to the kids, and it's also helped me build relationship with the kids, and it's also helped me model some skills for the teachers because they get to be a part of it too.
Yeah. I love our for your storytelling class. Do you have all ages in there?
I start at 2 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is a 2 year old class. So some of them aren't two yet. They're maybe like 1.5. I have found has been the youngest. There are our infant classes that I don't get in front of, but as they move up, they get to join that class in the chapel experience too.
Makes sense. I was just going to ask
Yeah.
you how old do you
Hmm.
stop infants? But yes,
Yeah.
2 and up seems to me like the perfect age
Yeah.
to have the attention span to really listen to
Hmm.
the story as part of a group and to participate in those activities. I love that you're building a home connection there and sending
Yeah.
home that learning target so parents don't just hear maybe from the teacher or from a child who has enough language to say, oh, Miss Emily read The Very Hungry Caterpillar, but also that they get that concrete connection to how to
Hmm.
connect to God for
Yeah.
families that maybe consider Cliff Temple their church, but don't actually attend or don't have a vibrant relationship with the Lord. You're kind of fostering that for them and helping them disciple their children in ways that,
Yes.
I mean, I would have loved that as a young mom to have somebody send
Yeah.
home, saying, hey, the very hungry, which I love, the Very Hungry Caterpillar. It was one of my son's favorite books. All three of my sons loved it. There's
Yeah.
a worn out copy on my bookshelf right now, and my sons are in their
Yeah.
20s. It was one of our favorites. So I
Yeah.
think just to go to parents, hey, have you ever thought about how
Hmm.
this could connect to something spiritual, to your relationship with God, with your children? I would have loved that as a young mom. And
Hmm.
I love that you're doing that. I think that's a really powerful tool that you're giving parents, and just
Yeah.
reminding them that everyday moments are actually how we can best disciple our children. It's
Yes.
not that they need to sit down and have a devotional and prayer time with their
Yes.
preceptor. It's we're already reading bedtime stories. What if you just
Yeah.
added 3 sentences about how this connects to God, which God loves them?
Mm-hmm.
I love
I
that
know.
you're
Yeah, I've mentioned that to you before. I just think that the more we can ingrain discipleship in the everyday things that we're doing, the relationship that your child is building with Jesus is going to be expanded upon even more. One of the primary roles that maybe we're not talking about as a minister to children and families is to equip parents to disciple their kids, right? We, as the church, are here to also disciple your children alongside you. But how am I equipping you to do this outside of this building? That storytelling class has allowed me the opportunity to do that. I've started offering a community version of that class where the parent is invited to attend with their child and they get to experience the class with them. And so I've been doing those once a month and have had a lot of success, not only from our center parents, but also from parents in the community who maybe stay home with their children. It's brought both of those worlds together.
are you making that more like a mommy and me class, or like a
Mhm. Yep.
parent?
Exactly like that. If you would go to the library and attend a literature class with your child alongside them, that's exactly what you're getting, but you're getting that faith-based discipleship teaching with your child.
So awesome. Let's move on to how you are ministering to teachers.
Yes. Back to my whole threefold philosophy: teachers, parents, children. I honestly view this relationship building discipleship opportunity with our CDC teachers as probably the most important because they are the ones that are face to face with 120 kids who live within 5 miles of our church. That is a gift that these teachers are giving us as a church, right? And so, how can I make sure I'm pouring into them while they pour into our community? They are really being the hands and feet of Jesus to our community. And so
Sure.
it is my job to pour into them and disciple them. I think that starts with relationship building. At my old school, we always used to say, people learn from people they love, and no one is going to care about what I have to say if they don't love me and have a relationship with me. And so that is always my first goal. And I also have felt passionate about getting the church behind that too. I'm having the church every school year, they help me write letters of prayer for every staff member at the CDC, and we hand deliver them. Every couple of months, I'm offering just a little fun pick me up, like nothing crazy. I think I did candy bags once. We actually had our oldest Sunday school class make gift bags for each of the CDC teachers, and then I got to hand deliver them. Just ways that I can get
That's
face to
awesome.
face with the teachers and really emphasize, like, this is a gift. You are a part of this church. This is a gift of appreciation from us to you. And then, really, where I've seen a lot of success and that I just love is actually had our adult Sunday school classes help me host a dinner or a lunch for our CDC staff twice a year. So, our next one is actually coming up next week. So, we've gotten in the rhythm of having an adult class help me host a Christmas dinner for them. We hosted this for the first time last year, and it was actually the first time the entire CDC staff was able to gather together outside of working hours,
Yeah.
which is just blew my mind. You know, that our director does a great job of hosting potlucks and lunches and teacher appreciations, but they can only do those things during the school day. And so they're
Never all
alternating.
there at the same time. So
Yeah,
they only run
yeah.
into the people that they can run into during their little short break time or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
good.
it just doesn't
Oh, I
have the
love
same
it.
feel.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting down together, having a meal together. I see a huge emphasis on ministering to new babies being born on our staff, the loss of family members, or just trials that I know these teachers are going through, being more aware of the things going on in their lives and how helping to disciple them through those everyday moments that they're having in hopes that they're starting to realize that we are someone they can turn back to in those moments that they are in need, and just has really helped to build the relationship with the teachers. And yeah, I'm just trying to get to know them on a personal level. It's a lot of staff members. I've
It
really
is.
encouraged the rest of our ministry staff to learn all of our teachers by name. I created a bulletin board in our ministry offices that has every CDC teacher's picture. I got them to put a fun fact about themselves on it,
Oh,
and we hung it up. So now the ministry staff walks back and forth every day and they see all 35 faces. When we hire a new teacher, we put her up there and they're learning those teachers by name too, and really shifting the mindset of we are all one staff. We are all on a staff together serving this church. And so that doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely, we're building small steps in that direction. But I do think that desire to know them personally helps to build that relationship and then opens up the opportunity for me to disciple them.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. You and I have talked several times about some really fun things that you're doing with parents, more than just sending home the things that allow them to disciple their children, but really building community within the family.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing to help families get to know each other and then also to introduce them to the church as a whole.
Yeah. One of the things we are noticing in our current world is these parents aren't necessarily going to show up to a worship service on Sunday morning. We need to go into our relationship with them acknowledging that, right, as fact. And so instead of how do we get them to come to us, it's how do we meet them where they are. That has driven a lot of the decision making we've made in terms of getting to know the community of parents. It does help that I'm a parent there. I will preface that. I know that I've already built some relationship. I have a lot of that trust. I've gained a lot of trust. I think that helps a lot. I definitely think these are things that even if you had someone on staff who was not a parent could do. One of the things we launched was a Cliff Temple Moms and a Cliff Temple Dads group. And it is simply a group of moms and a group of dads who get together and do fun things together. And in the community, usually locally. And it just provides parents an opportunity to get to know other parents at the center. That's where we see a lot of community building happening. We also have the opportunity to bring in some moms and dads from who do regularly attend Sunday worship service, and it just offers that more relationship building. They're meeting more people from the church side of things and building relationship and helping give that unified feel to the moms and dads who are attending the center. So we've had a lot of success there. I have a mom who runs that and a dad who runs the dads group. I just oversee them and help them communicate about their events. One of my favorite things that we started doing was hosting about 8 families a semester for a dinner. And we utilize our child development center teachers to provide free childcare for their child. And then we host a really nice dinner and we cook for them and we invite them over. Some of these parents, that is the first time they have ever eaten a meal without their kid in like 11 months. It's just meeting a need and also building that relationship and community at the same time. When we meet with those families, we talk to them about how we know that it takes, but we also know that in the current world, not every family has a village. So, do you have a village? If you do, who's in your village? And if not, how can we help support you in being that village for you? What would that look like? What do you need? What do you feel like are some of the pain points of being a young parent in the current world? And then we just kind of take that information and we reflect on it, and it helps us with our decision making moving forward for the center, but also just helps build relationship. People just want to be seen and heard, and that really helps build trust between the church and the center. And my last favorite idea that we do would be that we took the version of Parents Night Out and adapted it and launched that this year and have had a lot of success. We thought, well, we want to invite the parents, we want to provide them a childcare opportunity outside of regular daycare working hours, because we do see that as a huge need in our community. But we don't want them to just go off on their own and be further isolated and not have a chance to build community. So how can we take this Parents Night Out idea and adapt it to where we're offering that, but more intentionally? We call it group dinners at local restaurants, and that's exactly what it is. They register on a Wednesday night, and their children attend our Wednesday night programming. So we're getting another opportunity to disciple their kids. They're getting to meet people at our church who are my volunteers. We also use some of our CDC teachers for our younger babies. It just offers an extra level of comfort for those newer parents. They sign up for a restaurant based on what restaurant they want to go eat at, and they have no idea who's going to be at the dinner. We keep them in groups of 8 to 10. It's a mix between people who regularly attend Sunday worship service, families from the community, and families from the center. They all go to dinner. They get to know other families who are in the same season of life and share a meal together without their kids. And that has been a huge success in helping build that relationship with the center.
So I want to ask you a few questions about each one of these things, because
Yeah.
there's so much potential for families to get to know each other. Your mom and dad's groups, you said both groups are led by a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
They meet once a month and they do something fun. And
Mm-hmm.
is that just the CDC moms and dads, or is it church moms and dads, community moms and dads? It's just a moms and dads group.
Anyone who is a mom or a dad. It really varies by event who we see attend. We try to be really conscious of monetary ask, offering things that are more free versus sometimes the class together that might be pricier.
Yeah.
What we've seen is things grow out of that. The dads group has been around a little longer than the moms. And we've had dads be like, we should start a sports team and play pickup sports. We should do a book club and read this book. And so what started as one thing is really growing into a lot of different things, which is what we want to see, because that tells us people are building relationship with each other.
Okay, love that. And I love that you're being intentional about building that community. It's awesome to me that what you have recognized at Cliff Temple is that so many of our families are really isolated. Like, not everybody that lives, we're not, I think, in the generation where we all live really close to our parents or some other support network. And so many young parents really are, they don't have a village. So I love that you're asking that question. When we talk about hosting the dinners, not the group dinners out at a restaurant, but the 8 to 10 a semester that you're hosting, I just want to be clear here. Emilie is hosting these families in her house and in her pastor's house. Now, the fun thing here is that Emilie and her pastor actually live next door to each other. And so dinner is at Pastor Gannon's house and childcare is at Emilie's house. But I love that you're hosting them in your home, because it just adds such a personal touch. Children's ministers, senior pastors, listen, you don't have to bring them to your home if that is uncomfortable, but consider it, because I do think it speaks volumes to families who maybe are not a part of the church to say, hey, these people are willing to show me real hospitality that actually cost them something.
Yeah, it's what Jesus did. What did he do? He shared meals around the table with people and got to know them and talked to them about what they were experiencing. I agree. That level of hospitality by inviting someone into a home is really, really special. You'll definitely get the skepticism when they first walk in the door of, oh, what's about to happen? And then as they sit down, you just see that, oh, they really just want to have dinner and get to know me.
I love something you told me when we had lunch the other day, that one of the parents actually said to you, I was waiting for you to pull the church card.
Yes. Yeah. She's like, I thought you had the pamphlets under the napkins. I was like, there's no pamphlets. You know where our church is. You know that we have service at 11 o'clock on Sunday. And if you want to be there, I do not have any doubt that you can figure out how to get yourself there. I don't need to advertise that to you. And that is not my goal when I'm meeting with these families.
Yeah. I love that you've really put forward that your goal really is to know them and hear how you as a church, how you as a children and family minister, how you as a fellow mom in the community, how you can help serve them in a way that is valuable to them, not just throw all your programming at them and say you should be here. Like you
Yeah.
really saying, what do you need? And maybe you
Hmm.
have a village and all you need from us is a
Yeah.
smiling childcare 5 days a week because you're going to work. And that is
Yeah.
great. Or maybe you feel super lonely and you don't know anyone. And yeah, you
Hmm.
have been out with your husband for a meal for
Hmm.
11 months, some probably a lot longer than that, honestly, because
Yeah.
you're not sure where to find trustworthy childcare. Like, I
Yeah.
think the value that you're providing is huge. Talk to me about the relationship that you're seeing form between parents when you do these small group things.
One thing that's really special about the CDC is that it already had this community relationship feel. It's why the center is so successful. It is really advertised by word of mouth. That's how we ended up there, and people love it. It has that family feel to it. So for me to come in and add on to that didn't feel foreign to anyone who was there. And
Right.
so I think just seeing, I've definitely, since we've implemented these things, seen that build more. At our last dinner that we had at Gannon and Carrie's house, not a single parent at the table knew each other walking in. Oh, hi, what's your name? Oh, who's your kid? Hi, what's your name? By the end of the dinner, Gannon and I could have left. Like, we didn't even need to be there anymore. They were all chatting. Oh, I didn't know you know this person. And I didn't know you owned a business in the Bishop Arts. It is what I just feel like God's desire for us. God is community in Himself. And
Right.
so to offer this opportunity to knit these stories together that already exist within this building is such a special opportunity. And so we've really seen those relationships take off. And like I was mentioning with the dad's group, our hope is that I'm not always going to be the one overseeing this, right? As these parents are building relationship and wanting to start their own sports teams or hosting their own dinner groups, we really want to see that expand and grow out into the community. I really think that's what we're working towards as these parents build community with each other. I would also add that something that I think is not spoken about enough that we cannot ignore is the result of isolation we're seeing in parenting because of the pandemic. I
Mhm.
think that needs to be at the forefront of our conversations when we're talking about discipling and ministering to families, especially young families. Kids who are in pre-K were born the year the pandemic started. These parents brought a child into the world, even if their family did live here, probably couldn't be at the hospital with them, probably
Yep.
couldn't be around their baby. Most of these parents that are going to be at centers currently and in the next few years have been parenting in isolation as a product of the pandemic. I believe firmly that it is the church's responsibility to respond to that in a way that promotes community and prompts parents out of this isolated parenting style and back into that community style of parenting.
Yeah. So good. Okay. Very practically, how do you choose the families? You said you had 80 families at the CDC. How do you choose the ones
Yeah.
that get the special dinner invitation?
God. I know it's not me. None of it's me. There are some parents who just want to show up at the center. They want childcare for their kids. They want to drop them off and then they want to go. And that's fine. And if that's what their need is, how can I disciple your child while they're here? I need to be that you really need that sense of awareness. And so I think I really pay attention to the parents who are interested in building community. Maybe they mention something to me or they talk about play dates or just kind of who are more interested. A lot of times they're parents I see out in the community, being a young parent myself, who I notice wanting to get involved with other parents. And then literally on my desk, I have a list. Oh, I went to this family today. I wonder if God wants me to dive into that relationship more, check on them or get to know them better. And I have my little list. And every time one of these is coming up, I just pray over that list and ask God to provide wisdom and discernment, and He always does every single time. And my hope is that eventually we can meet with all of these families and
Yeah.
maybe even equip some other people to start hosting things like this. I do have to give that all over to Him because He has been so kind to help me discern through this process.
I appreciate how prayerful you are about how you approach some of these families, that you really are looking for God to guide you to the ones that He wants for you to build a relationship with. I love how intentional you are about that because I think that's where the real power of what you're doing actually comes to fruition. God is already preparing the hearts and minds of these parents before they ever step foot in a house or before they encounter you in the hallway. So I love that you're super intentional and prayerful about that. Gosh, I would love to ask, are you seeing families build stronger relationship with the Lord and maybe transition from only being at the CDC during the week to actually attending some of the other programming at Cliff Temple?
Yeah, since I took this role, since we've started this shift of meeting parents where they are and not just expecting them to come to us, we have had parents come to us. If there's a family in your center and you are being intentional about providing them community, meeting their needs, building relationship, and they are looking for a church home, they're going to look to you. They're not going to get on the internet and search, what church should I go to if they're interested in trying one out? Like, they're going to come to you. And so I think that we've seen a lot of fruit from that. We have a handful of families now who have decided to join officially. I would already call them a part of our church, but
Yeah.
become members of our church and have started attending regularly on Sunday.
Yeah.
We see our Wednesday nights as a very good segue to maybe parents who aren't ready for a full worship style of service, but they're ready to dive into more community with us. We've been really prayerful and attentive to what we're offering on Wednesday nights, how we make that more approachable to the two-parent working home. If you've had your child in daycare all day, you might not want to come be separated from them again for another period of time. We used to offer an hour and a half of programming, so we shortened it to an hour to hopefully meet that need, make it more approachable to younger families and not run so late. Just being more aware of things like that. We definitely have seen that crossover between all the different things we're offering through these different relationship and community building opportunities. Even if they're not interested in attending on a Sunday, just the participation in the discipleship of their children. I
Yeah.
don't think parents are often ready to say, I'm ready to further my relationship with the Lord. That's a really vulnerable thing, but to say, oh, I want to know more about how to disciple my child. Sometimes
Right.
that's a little bit more approachable for a parent who's unsure about how to take a new step. I definitely think that we've seen a lot more interest, a lot more ways that we can meet those needs through these opportunities that we've been providing parents.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think you and your leadership at Cliff Temple, you've been really, really intentional about trying to meet the needs of the families in your church that are already regular attenders, a regular part of what you're doing at Cliff Temple, and extending that out into the community of what do
Hmm.
we really need instead of saying, hey, y'all come to us. What can we do
Hmm.
for you? Bring the church to the community rather than saying, hey, community, come walk in our doors at 11 o'clock on Sunday, because that's where
Yeah.
you're going to see Jesus. Y'all have decided, no, we're going to be Jesus and walk out into the community every day. And it won't
Hmm.
be dependent on families making that decision to show up on Sunday at 11. It really is. Y'all are making an intentional effort into being the hands and feet of Jesus in the places
Yeah.
where you live and work and go to the store and go out to dinner and play on the playground.
Hmm.
Sports teams that you participate in with your kids, like you're bringing the church to the community, which I think
Hmm.
model of Jesus in every way. I mean, he was walking out in the crowds. He wasn't always, hey, come join me at the temple on Monday, you know?
Yeah, I know. And if that desire is there, then they're gonna come. Or maybe they have another church home and think, we haven't gone back there in a while. We should go. Really just helping reestablish those rhythms.
Right.
Again, coming out of the pandemic, especially, I think has been really valuable. And we've seen that. And that makes me so happy.
Oh, Emily, this has been so awesome. Okay, our podcast is called Reimagine Childhood. And the last question I always ask, which I didn't prep you in advance, I should have, and I'm sorry.
It's
Our
okay.
podcast is called Reimagine Childhood. So the last question I always ask our guests is, if there was something that you could reimagine about our approach to early childhood right now, what would that be?
Yeah, I think meeting the needs of parents. How can we listen to them more? How can we ask them what they're struggling with? How can we meet that desire to be heard and seen exactly where they are so that we can help them, which then in turn is going to help them disciple their kids and help reimagine their childhood for their kids, right? Especially these young families. If we can meet them now and have significant impact on their life, whatever that would look like, a church service, a community event, then that could change the trajectory of the rest of their child's life. And
Right.
so that to me is super impactful and a huge calling that I feel on my own heart. I hope that other people share that desire too and call.
Thank you, Emily. I loved that you are willing to give of your time and your heart today and share with our audience about the great things that God is doing through you and your leadership team at Cliff Temple, and just how the families in your CDC are getting to know the Lord in really real and practical ways, and not in ways that are really difficult either. I mean, it costs you something, sure, but it's easy, daily. It's like we said at the beginning, right? Discipling our kids in the everyday is
Mhm.
exactly what you're doing with these families too, is you're just showing up. You're just
Yeah.
showing up where you are and saying, oh, I'm
Mhm.
here and I see you and I want to be with you and I want to provide whatever I can to help you along the
Yeah.
way. I love your heart in that, Emily, and I'm grateful that you would share that with us.
So glad to be here. This was so fun.
I'm so excited about all that God is doing among young families in Oakcliff, Texas through this CDC and the church that surrounds it. I love how intentional Emily is with her 3 facets of discipleship support: parents, children, and staff. I hope you heard how valuable she sees the role of early childhood educators. You teachers are the front line to our community, the face of Jesus for so many families every day. You're discipling these little ones each day and caring for their parents in unique ways. Don't underestimate your eternal impact. I hope this episode gave you some practical ideas for connecting your church to your school families. If you think this episode might be helpful for your church leadership or another member of your community, please share it with them. The families in our community are trusting us with their children. And in that, they're trusting us with their families for the next generation. We have a responsibility and a privilege to be intentional in how we minister to them. Think about how you could be more intentional about building a bridge of faith for a young family that's in your circle. How are you already doing that in whatever role you hold each day? Would you share your great ideas with us? Comment on our social media posts this week or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Reimagine Childhood with Early Childhood Christian Network, where you'll get practical ideas to implement in your classroom today. You might even be challenged to change your mind about a few things, and you'll always be reminded that your work matters. If you love this episode, would you subscribe and then share it with your coworkers, friends, and family? You can connect with us on a regular basis on Instagram at Early Childhood Christian Net. That's Early Childhood Christian Net. And on Facebook at Early Childhood Christian Network. Remember to visit our show notes for more great resources. We're so glad you're here. See you next time.